Grief is very weird. As someone who studied psychology for upwards of 5 years in academia, but then, just being a human being and analyzing human behavior, there has been a lot said and is said about grief, through media, TV shows, movies, literature. There's a lot of things that almost have become cliches just because of how many times we've heard it. Things like grief isn't linear, mourning is going to ebb and flow just as anything in life does. And with concepts that I was always fascinated with, like the 5 stages of grief, they're not actually stages, more moments in the mourning process that will come up and do come up and will rearrange an order. It isn't always denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. It might be acceptance one day, depression the next, denial tomorrow, and halfway through that day, it'd be anger. And despite having heard these cliches through a multitude of different forms of media, and even analyzing grief in a psychological and even theological way, I always thought that this was something that I would have to deal with when I was much older. Given how young I am, just being in my early 20s, I never thought that I would have to grieve or mourn. Sure, I could grieve and mourn, my childhood, or a friendship that fell apart, or, a good memory, or what could have been, but never a person because they passed away until it happens. Sayings like, always let the people that you love know that you love them because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. Even as a Christian, I know tomorrow's not promised. That's biblical. Jesus could come back within the next hour. But again, because I'm so young, it could easily happen to someone else, but not to me or someone that I know, until it did. And the world keeps spinning. Life keeps moving forward, and I'm expected to as well. And loss is such an uncomfortable feeling, not only as the person who is mourning, because there's not always a sense of closure. There's not always something that bookends it, and even if there is, it's not the way that you wanted it to go, no matter how many times you'd play through it in your head. The society that we've created, there's an expectation to keep moving, an expectation to keep the daily rhythms alive as you're mourning. There's no common theme of just stop and mourn and reflect and celebrate the life. Despite the gaping hole that once was filled with friendship and with love, you have to push through. You have to keep going. It's also uncomfortable for those that are watching the mourner. Death is such an uncomfortable piece of conversation for a lot of people. And there never seems to be the right string of words to present with someone who's mourning. Not only that, but as time goes on, the words become more and more scarce, just because mourning takes its own pace. Grieving ebbs and it flows, and one day, 1 week, 1 month might be no problems at all, and the next is heartbreaking. And with the indefinite schedule of grieving, when is one expected to stop asking for help? When is someone expected to stop giving help? Is that even something that should be considered? Should I be over it at this point? Should I move on? Should I stay here? Should I repress it? Should I ignore it? Am I expected to move on? And I don't think moving on completely means absorbing the place that a person used to take up in your life. Whether that's a consequence of death or just a falling out. passing ships in the moment of life. Because to remove a place in your life where someone actively played a role in it that was perfectly shaped for them, just for all of a sudden there to be a gap, I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's fair. They're there, and then they're not. And the world keeps turning. Time keeps moving forward. And so are you. You will cry when you pass by the places that you used to spend time together and the memories that you shared. You will smile at the old photos and videos of those inside jokes that you held dear years later. Anger might well up every time that you try to come up with some form of closure. But this is grief. It is uncomfortable. It is weird. It is a part of life. I've unfortunately learned this the hard way. But take it seriously when people say, tell those that you love them when you can and while you can. Because tomorrow is not certain. Tomorrow is as passing as dust in the wind. Relish every moment you have together. Take as many pictures and videos as you can together. The inside jokes, the memories in the making, the musical moments of life. Because the world will keep spinning. Time will keep moving forward. But so will you.